Hi, everybody. My name is Hannah, and I'm from the Wyoming branch here, and I am going to share some fantasy graphic novels with you. So these are going to be both teen and adult picks. And as you can see, I have quite the stack here. So it should be super duper fun. So while I'm going through all of these books, if you miss a title or two, no big deal. I have made a book list that I will add as a comment on the Facebook post. So stay tuned for that. And it's also on kdl.org under More Than Superheroes. So let's get to it. The first few I'm going to share are going to be teen titles. And this first one, I actually have the sequel here, but the first one is called Foiled. So Foiled, it's got a pretty simple start of a premise, but it's a really fun fantasy adventure story if you want something like that. The main character here, she finds this cool jeweled sword in a garage sale, picks it up, and then she gets swept into a fantastical world. And the art is quite cool. It's got all the classic fantasy elements, but in a suburban setting. So if you like general fiction but want some dragons in there too, that's a really good one for that. So this is a super fun one. Make sure to keep your eye on it. This is the sequel. The first one is called Foiled, but that is in the book list. So no worries there. The second one is by Scotty Young, and this is Middle West. So this is a very pretty one. So this one has bright pops of color. It's got a very superhero-y comic feel to it. And that is Middle West. So this is a pretty cool one. This one is set in America in a small town in like the center of the country. So think like Oklahoma area. And the main character here has kind of a tumultuous relationship with his father that can be very up and down emotionally. And then one day there's a really big fight. He runs off, and then his father gets so upset that he turns into a literal tornado god. Yikes, which is really terrifying. What's also terrifying for the main character is he seems to also have that ability as well. So there's a lot of cool characters in this, and the art is very colorful. There's also a cool fox sidekick, which is really fun. Let's find you a good example here. Like here's the color. For the most part, there's going to be a lot of dark blues, but as you can see, the color works really pretty in this one. Yeah. See, there's lots of detail. He also did a comic called I Hate Fairyland, which is an adult graphic novel pick, which I will bring up in a little bit as well. This next one here this is a classic one. This is Elfquest, and it's been around for a long time. That being said, if you want a cool fantasy graphic novel quest that has lots of volumes, and you like elves, and you like wolves, and you like those classic fantasy elements when you think of fantasy, Elfquest is a really cool one. The artwork, you either dig it or you don't. It's definitely in that. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Conan in art style. It has a very 80s look to it. That being said, if you like He-Man, She-Ra from the 80s, you will probably really enjoy the artwork in this. So the main character are these wood elves, and they live with wolves. And they're somewhat feral, but also trying to get used to outsiders coming in and trying to take their land and all that kind of stuff. As you can see, it's very pretty. Good use of color. It's a bright, colorful fantasy graphic novel. So if you want that, And there's a bunch of them, both online and in physical copies. Elfquest is a really good one. They also have a very immersive website. So if you want to get more into a deep dive, that's a good one for this as well. And this last one that I have to share in the teen graphic novels today is Moonstruck. So this is a fantasy romantic comedy, and it's very cute. If you think of like cozy reading, this would be a really good one for that. And that is, these are all fantasy creatures. So there's centaurs in it, there's elves in it, there's werewolves in it. Any kind of fantasy creature you can think of is probably going to be in this. And they run a coffee shop. And they work together when their friend Chet accidentally makes a deal and loses his fantasticalness and just becomes a human, which Chet didn't actually want. So they're working together to try to have their friend go back to the way they were, and at the same time have romance and intrigue and all kinds of fun stuff. And it's very cozy cute. It's got a nice webcomic kind of flair to it. And look, there's even a Medusa type character in here. There's just all kinds of cool characters in this. If you want fantasy characters with a modern twist to it, that'll be a really fun one. And here's another example for you. All right, perfect. So these next ones are still really good books that I recommend wholeheartedly. However, these are in the adult graphic novel area, so they're going to have more mature content. So just a heads up with that. I'll give people a moment if they aren't into that before we get into these. All right, perfect. So this next one I have, this is going to be another one that's been around for a while. And there's a lot of volumes to it. So it's just a really good one to get into. If you like fairy tale retellings, you'll probably really like this. And these are Fables. So in some ways, it kind of reminds me of Harry Potter in a way, because these are all fairy tale-esque creatures and characters. Like Snow White's a regular character in this, for example. And they live alongside like our world, and we are normies, and they hide themselves from us to protect their true identities. So it's almost like a parallel world that's right alongside our world. And what's cool is there's different stories within each graphic novel, but within the Fables universe. So like this one is Inherit the Wind, but there's a whole bunch of them. There's one with like a Snow White retelling, one with Cinderella retelling. There's all kinds of really cool ones. So if you want good fairy tale retellings in a modern-ish setting, Fables is a good one. And it's got like a 70s superhero graphic novel kind of feel to it. So if you like that art style, that will be a good one. There's a lot of available on Hoopla as well, so you can get your hands on it pretty easy. And look, this one has St. Nicholas in it. It's very cool. It's a good one. This next one that is in the old school category this is within the Sandman universe. So if you haven't read any Sandman graphic novels by Neil Gaiman, please do so. If you enjoy fantasy and dark fantasy, it's a classic for a reason. It's really good, but you don't need to have read it to read this one. This is House of Whispers. So this is set in a houseboat in New Orleans, and the main character is a spiritual houseboat where everyone that partakes in voodoo, when they fall asleep, they dream and all go to this houseboat to talk shop and congregate and all kinds of good stuff. But one day she notices 4 girls that aren't into voodoo accidentally open a portal. Ooh, so I think my favorite thing is it has just beautiful art. It's got those pastels, and there's just a twinge of spookiness that keeps you really involved. As you can see, here she is. It's just a beautifully done collection. And there's cool monsters and stuff too. So, yeah, House of Whispers, if you like the Sandman universe, but want a New Orleans twist to it with a little bit of voodoo, this is a really cool one to try out. This next one here reminds me a bit of Narnia. There are portals involved, and that is Birthright. So one day, the main character, as a child, disappears, and his family assumes he is dead, is gone for a year, comes back as a grown adult, warning them of a peril, in that he was sucked into a different world. And he's ready to fight. He's now a warrior. He now knows how to use a long sword. He's clearly seen a lot. And what makes it even worse is he wasn't alone when he came back. Other entities came back with him. So if you want a mystery fantasy, but also set in a area kind of familiar to our own, this is a really good one. As you see, art style's really cool. There's some little dragons. All kinds of good stuff. This next one is kind of sci-fi, kind of adventure, kind of fantasy. And that is Shutter. So the main character here is a photographer. She adventures, goes all over the place. She is recently retired, but she's been called back to Earth to try to save the world, in a sense. And she has a cool cat companion that looks a lot like one of those clock cats. And it's just got tons of cool aliens and monsters and all kinds of cool stuff in it. There we go. Take another peek here. So yeah, if you like monsters, a little bit of mystery, and Indiana Jones vibe to your story, Shutter is a really cool one for you. If you want a cool family that fights crime together and also beats monsters and demons and all kinds of cool stuff, Bitterroot is a really good one for you. So this is set in the 1920s Harlem Renaissance. This is a family who devotes their entire life to fighting monsters and other things that go bump in the night. One of the main family pillar members dies mysteriously, which kind of splits up the family a little bit, but they come together to fight a upcoming evil that may destroy all of mankind. Wahaha. As you can see, art's really cool. There's cool fighting scenes. Cool demon stuff. Even the gore isn't too bad in this one. It's just a lot of spooky. And I think what I really like about this is they tend to really focus on one color palette to really convey emotion well, which I particularly enjoy. So if you want a cool fighting family graphic novel set in the 1920s, Bitterroot is a really good one to look out for. This next one is going to be similar. These are main characters that are these really cool fighting guild of women, and they're sassy and fun and very sarcastic humor, and they fight all kinds of monsters for money, and that is Rat Queens. So here are the main characters here. It's just very fun. The characters are very enjoyable in this too. And the fighting sequences are A+. So if you want some sarcastic gals that just know how to fight and kill all kinds of big scary monsters with a D&D flair to it, then Rat Queens is an excellent one for you. Here's another example here. Yeah, all kinds of good stuff in this one. And we're almost done. I have 2 more. This one right here, you can get this in single volumes, but I have the entire compendium in this one, and that is Monstrous. So the main character is a fighter, and she gets sort of combined, I guess is the best word, with a eldritch horror that actually aids her in fighting other monsters. So it's very coolly done. And if you like H.P. Lovecraft, Eldritchian horror kind of stuff, this will be a cool one for you. And there's lots of good subtle illustrations. There's fun animal characters. All kinds of good stuff. And this is available in physical form on Hoopla, and you can either get an entire volume like this with entire, like, everything's in here, but it can be kind of big, or you can get it in single volumes as well. So it's really whichever type is the best for you. You can get it. And the last one, so this is the other Scotty Young one that I brought up earlier. And this one is definitely humorous, and it's satire of the fantasy concept. So I think it's really, really fun. And that is I Hate Fairyland. So this one is definitely gory, but it's funny. So the main character, she was a little girl, got sucked into a fairyland by a fairy godmother, has been in there for 40 years. So she's actually a 40-year-old woman stuck in a 6-year-old body, stuck in this fairyland, which at first seemed great, but now she wants out and she's sick of it. All she can eat is candy. It's awful. Everyone speaks in rhyme, and she just wants to kill the fairy godmother so she can just get out and return back to her life and go back to an adult body, because that's what she is. So it's very crude, but the art style is really, really fun. It's very fun and poppy. If you have watched Hell of a Boss on YouTube, you would probably really enjoy this because it's very similar humor. And just the art style is just so poppy and crisp and yet cartoony. It's just very unique. It's very unique and pretty, but also pretty funny as well. So that is all I have to share with you today. I hope you found some great books to try out. You can join me in next month where I will have more graphic novels to share. I will add the book list at the end of this today. And with that, take care, stay safe, and I will see you next time. Bye.